Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of maybe like creative people think sometimes drugs or alcohol can like enhance their creativity, or they're more in the moment or whatever. But I think people realize like that's not true, and like you're more connected and more in the moment when you're sober.
So I wasn't much of a singer. I wrote a lot of our songs and like the lyrics, and I had to sing them. And but I was more of a guitar player, and it was during a guitar solo that was like going really well, and everyone was going wild, and I was just like, I feel like I'm about to explode. Like, it felt good.
So I'm with Jimmy today with the H.O.F.F.A Foundation, and I kind of want to just bring you on and talk about a little bit about your organization, what you do, and like kind of your experience with addiction, alcoholism, and like living in Maryland.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
We were just talking about you were in a band and you were the guitarist, and how you were kind of in the midst of your alcoholism through that. Because you just told me you got a DUI, and I was really happy to hear that.
Yeah, really happy to hear that one.
Because I got three DUIs, which was what led me to go to treatment.
I guess like music wise, I had started to play the saxophone when I was in elementary school.
Really?
And I ended up in jazz band, and that was a little bit different than what I was used to in regular playing, and it was songs that were really cool, and you got to do like solos and improv and all that kind of stuff. And I went to see John Lee Hooker at a blues fest, and my dad made sure that I would he was like, you can miss everything else, but you're seeing John Lee Hooker. And his sideman, which is a whole nother story at the time, ended up being my guitar teacher. His name was Terry Gleason. And he was like playing behind his head. I found out while he was my teacher that was the reason why I switched to guitar, was watching this man play. And so I started playing music like with guitar probably at around like 13 years old. I'm not really sure. It was right when I was getting into high school, I guess.
Do you still play today?
I don't play as much as I'd like to, because I've been living in like sober living, and then then I rented from a friend of mine. She rented me a room. I was in a row house, and I live in an apartment. So my amp is a vintage amp from the 70s, and if it's on level 3, you can hear it down the block. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Haven't been able to do that, but I've been working back into it. But at the time, like I grew up and I was a really shy kid. So I don't know, man. Everyone has these things where they can be like, I knew I had alcoholic tendencies or addict tendencies as a kid. So I guess mine would be like, my initial escape was like playing guitar, and I got pretty good at like hearing something and be able to play. Like we had tabs and everything. You could print something off the internet back when everyone did that, and I would learn off the paper. But I noticed I could start hearing and playing, and then I got really lucky with the teacher I had. He taught me how to play lead and all these different things that were really cool. And I'd spent a lot of my time just practicing guitar. Like I'd have friends over and they'd be playing like PlayStation or something, and
that was what I was doing.
Yeah, so I was playing, like I'd be playing my guitar while they were, while we were all hanging out. And
I find that interesting though, with when people say, typically when people share at meetings, they're like, how alcoholism showed up before I even picked up a drink or a drug. I find it hard to see it in my story sometimes, because I feel like I was just so disconnected as a kid. But I think I mainly saw it with just overindulgence in like video games, maybe.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what it is. It's like it's a feeling of disconnection. And you find something that you develop a connection with. And for me, like I was really good at the saxophone. I'm terrible at the saxophone now. I found my old one a little while ago, and I can't even play green sleeves anymore. And it became like guitar for me, and there's all these cool things you can do. And I got introduced to Jimi Hendrix and was like, this is the best. And watching their videos. I didn't really play in too many bands. I just played with my friends when I was in high school, and did all that. And I mean, these kind of run in conjunction a little bit, I guess, because now that I think about it. The first, people will say in meetings, like, I don't know when I cross because my first one was alcohol.
Yeah.
They said, I don't know when I crossed the line of drinking to be an alcoholic. I know when I crossed mine because it was immediately. Because the first time that I went to a party, like I remember my first beer and whatever, but,
Yeah.
and I had just dabbled in things up until my senior year of high school. And like I did what I could get away with. And one of my friends came up and said, we're going to a party tonight. Do you want to come? And I said, yeah, man, that'd be cool. So I show up, and like I said, I was really shy. Like I know all these people because I go to school with them, but I'm still me at the time. And I remember this really distinctly because like everyone was drinking Bud Light, and I remember that because I used to, at the end of my drinking, I was like a whiskey drinker. I thought it was my job because I was playing blues rock to drink whiskey and get arrested. And because I made fun of people that drank Bud Light towards the end. But I would have a beer, and then I would think to say something or do something, and I'd be like, man, but no, I don't want to act like that. And then I'd drink another one, and I would do or say that thing,
Yeah.
and everyone would laugh or whatever. And so it was getting the response that I was looking for of like connection and acceptance and all that.
Almost like validation.
Yeah, and that's probably exactly what it is. And then it was like right around beer number 8.
This night that you first got drunk?
Yeah, this was the first time I got drunk. I was like, I want to go give this girl a kiss. And this was like one of the cheerleaders. She was pretty good looking. She had been dating a friend of mine. He had dumped her, and I was like, probably shouldn't do that. He's bigger than me. And then I had that 8th drink, and I was like, man.
All the the worries and the anxieties, it literally feels like
I have a way of putting it. I don't know how child friendly it would be, but I was like, screw him.
Yeah.
And I went up and gave her a kiss, and she was like, man, I've had a crush on you all high school. And I was like, this is exactly what I was looking for. So the first lesson that I got from alcohol was it allowed me to do what I had always been too nervous to, and it also got me the response and outcomes that I wanted. And from that point on, like that was it. 4 months later, I got my first DUI. I got arrested. I was 17, and if you're familiar, they call them dead man's curves, where you try and take a turn really fast, and people get killed trying. I took one going 90 miles an hour, and the problem was it was in the back of a community. So I would pass the houses, and then I would speed up and do this turn. And we did it once, and I was like, I can do better. So I went and did it a second time faster, and I got pulled over by an off-duty undercover cop in his pajamas that lived in the community because I wasn't able to slow down. Like, this is a 25-mile-an-hour zone.
Can they do that? Arrest you?
Yeah,
off-duty?
they can pull you over and call in for more help. Oh yeah.
So
they did do that.
That's crazy.
Well,
that doesn't seem like it shouldn't be allowed.
But it was deserved.
No,
I earned that one.
100% get arrested. But
yeah.
Do you feel a lot of, because my first DUI was trying to take a curve too quick and I ended up swerving, and I was 17 as well.
Yeah.
Ended up swerving, and like I started doing like spins, and then I crashed into a brick mailbox. It was like a really nice mailbox for some reason. Yeah, and then I got arrested. But do you feel, my question is, like, do you feel guilt with driving drunk?
Well, yeah. So the second half of that is, and I've played this through my head hundreds of times. I had 18 charges with that DUI. Usually you only get 4. A couple of them were associated with the fact that somebody threw trash out of my car, and there was a 10-year-old that was playing by the side of the road, and he had gone to that spot that I was trying this at because it was like the woods. Mm-hmm. And I'm very fortunate. So since someone threw trash and I was driving, I was held liable. So I got assault on a minor.
Wow.
He was Samoan, and so it was a hate crime added to it. And It's funny, I thought about not saying that, but I think it is important to bring up because this was like the people that know me
Yeah.
know that I don't really have hate for anybody. But my drinking immediately on paper begins to define who I am. Like, before I walk in the door with anyone, if you do a background check on me,
Yeah.
if that sticks, they see that. And that's really not a good look, and it's not a reflection of my character at all. But it is something that would have stuck with me because of it, directly because of my actions while drinking. So in all the times I've run that through, I never see the kid, and I'm incredibly fortunate that nothing happened, because my life takes an even more dramatic turn if it does. And besides mine, the life of that family, the kid, if he remained alive, if I hit him. So yeah, that's not that. I mean, guilt. I feel fortunate that nothing terrible happened. There's a couple spots that from just driving in Annapolis that when I go by, because I remember instances in like the rain and I had been drinking too much and I couldn't really see that well, and then I see somebody jumping out of the way of my car and I realized that I almost hit someone. When I go, because I'm from Kent Island, so I'm in the Annapolis area a lot. There's a spot where when we're walking around downtown Annapolis, don't so much anymore because it has been over a decade, but it used to make me sick to my stomach walking by and seeing it. Just that spot. Nothing happened,
Yeah.
luckily. But that spot, I mean, I guess they have the saying, God looks out for drunks and babies. Fortunate that no one was harmed in that. And there's a lot of other instances that I could sit here for the entire time talking about how fortunate I am that nothing worse went down.
Yeah, I think about it a lot because it's something that I've kind of been looking back at a little bit of, because I just feel so disconnected from my past because I don't feel like that's who I am today, and like that's not my character. Like the 3 DUIs on my record, and even some of the things people have seen me do or have heard that I've done. Like I just feel so detached from those things. But it's also like remembering that if I do pick up a drink or a drug, like there's a potential that I could become that person again. So yeah, it's weird of like, I know that's not who I am, but that's something I've done before, and I want to do everything to not get back to that place.
All those things, they aren't who I am and they don't define me as an individual, but they are things that happened. And like when you think about it, like in the big book it says what makes an alcoholic is the loss of control and choice. So like we can sit here, there's new people in meetings that will walk in and be like, well, I don't have any DUIs, so I must not be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Those are just consequences associated with being an alcoholic.
It's funny because I had DUIs and I was the person that said I'm not an alcoholic.
Yeah. So yeah, well that's actually, that's par for the course as well. But so it's choice and control. I'd lose the compulsion makes me go to drink more and to use more, and then I lose the choice on it. Like, I remember going through alcohol withdrawal and feeling it coming on and being, my feet are carrying me to the liquor store because I have to go to work. I have to do these things and I need alcohol to do this. Same thing with opiates and heroin and fentanyl. Like, I cannot be sick. I have to go do this. Well, I also lose control of the amount that I consume, and following that, I kind of lose control of my actions, and I start doing these things that are embarrassing, sad, funny, dangerous. It becomes all of the above, and that's really, the thing about it is you never really know. I can talk about what made me stop drinking wasn't any of the consequences. It was someone that I knew that hung around my band at the time, and she was a former prostitute. She was cool. I liked her. We were friends, and something had happened. No one ended up telling me. It wasn't anything too terrible, but everyone was angry at me, and it was at my house, and she was sitting across the table, and she was like, man, you're such a good guy, and this is just sad because, like, you used to be so much, when we'd go out, it'd be so much fun, and sometimes it is, and the shows are fun, but, like, the thing is, we never know what's going to happen anymore with you around, and the thing about that is it's happening more and more frequently, and no one ever knows when it's going to end.
Yeah.
Like, it could be weeks where you're acting like this, months, days, like whatever it is. And she said, and this is just not very becoming of you. And in my head at the time, I was like, this prostitute just told me that this is not very becoming of me. Like, oh my God. And, that was, I think within that next week, that's when I had stopped drinking. That was, after 2 more DUIs, court-ordered stints of sobriety. And, during that time, I had heard, I'm playing music in clubs in Maryland and bars, and I'm kind of getting whatever I want. So I was dabbling with drugs. Like whatever was put in front of me, it really didn't matter. And I mentioned that at an AA meeting in Annapolis, at one of the captain's tables meetings, and I was 22. And I started talking about cocaine because that was like, after we'd play, I would get into that and whatever. And someone pulled me up at the end of the meeting, and they're like, if you want to talk about your drug shit, there's a place for you to go do that. You don't want to talk about it here. So in my head, and I knew this was probably wrong, but in my head, I differentiated alcohol and drugs. So after I quit drinking and had about a year sober.
I don't, sorry to, like, please keep your train of thought, but that, I despise that when people differentiate, especially in the rooms.
Yeah,
It gets on my nerves, like, but
there's a lot of opinions about it. What I always say is, Dr. Bob was a morphine addict, and they call it sedatives. So people will say sedatives in meetings out of respect of AA. But the thing about it is, there's a lot of language from 1939 in the big book as well, and we don't play semantics on that. So I call it what it is, and it's my experience. When that's when I'm sharing, like, for a celebration. But if I have to speak and it's just a regular meeting, I try and talk about the solution. I can be like, look, I'm an alcoholic and a crackhead and a junkie. Those are all true. I have gambling problems. I love hallucinogens, but this is how I got better. I was like, well, I might not be able to drink anymore. Clearly drinking's ruining my life, but maybe I can be a successful drug addict and or do drugs successfully. And I really needed that to happen.
yeah.
Looking back, it's become a tool because at this point in time, I've gone through the withdrawal of most drugs that you're going to run into in treatment facilities. The only one I didn't withdraw from was meth. I've done meth, but I didn't do it enough to have that. But like what ended up happening was I learned, like, when they say, like, alcohol and drugs, like, aren't your problem, that's the solution. I've come to learn that you get yourself into a position where the most rational decision for you is to take a drink or a drug. I was getting what I needed. I never got hooked on any drugs because I was getting what I needed from alcohol. And as soon as I took alcohol out of the picture and started using a substance again, like, it very quickly, I went from, taking a pill every now and then to a $540 a day pill habit, and I'm not even high, to shooting dope. And, like, that burned my life down really quick.
The evidence that drug addicts can also be alcoholics and alcoholics can also be drug addicts.
Yeah, for me, it's the same.
It's one and the same. There's no difference.
Yeah, so I like to I went through a period of time where I used to say clean in AA and sober in NA just to
Yeah, of course.
do the opposite of what everyone would expect. If I can go back a minute, I didn't really start playing music until I ran out of money when I was living in Albany, New York, and I wanted to go get something to drink, and I had $10 left, and there was like a guitar like performance battle thing, like I forget what they're called, but it was made after this movie. Steve Vai was in it, and the Karate Kid.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Crossroads.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm probably gonna win, so I took the last $10 I had and entered, and I was like, and people will buy me drinks the entire night because that's what I'd gotten used to. I ended up winning $200, so I got to drink, and then the house band. I didn't have a job. I was just making money gambling on football, so I'd watch Sports Center all day so I could make sure I was gonna maybe win. And I wasn't really going to school. I was up there for school.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't doing that. I started playing with the house band and making money doing that. And then out of the people that I ran with, a lot of them overdosed.
Yeah.
And the writing was on the wall. So I ended up coming back to Maryland. Like things were going to take a dark turn for me had I stayed out on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So I came back here and linked up with some friends. And I was like, well, I did pretty good last time I played in front of a crowd and did it out of necessity. Let's do it for fun now. That's really what introduced me to a lot more hard drugs than, because I wasn't out looking for them. I would do anything that you brought around. But, like I said, I liked drinking and then whatever it was else. But all of a sudden, once we're playing with other bands and backstage, I was singing and playing the guitar. And like at the time, I could play behind my back and behind my head. So women started sharing drugs with me, and I was like, "This is
behind your back."
Yeah, I tried
That's
to be
cool.
like Stevie Ray Vaughan. I couldn't do the spin like he could.
Yeah.
But it was fun. And the thing about that is, when I was playing, I had an opportunity to go and be a sideman for this guy that was going on a national tour, and I got the gig at Stan and Joe's. Like I went and played an open mic night with him, and I had a whole plan of we're gonna do 3 sets, and I was gonna just ramp it up a little more every time. And after the first one, he was like, "You're hired." And I got a DUI coming home and couldn't leave the state after that. And I share this part. And a lot of people have said it sounds like there's remorse there, and there's really not. It's just how it played out. And it's important to say this, I think. There's a group of guys that are down. There's a meeting in this guy's house. His name's Frank, and they. That's when my sponsor goes there. The guy had gotten sick, so there's been a meeting in his home for 7 years. People brought a meeting to his home because that's what people in AA and NA do.
Yeah.
They look out for each other. And that's the group of guys that pretty much saved my life because they brought me up to Carroll County for rehab and left me up here.
Mm-hmm.
But
so it was, you got sober through rehab.
yes, I had quit drinking. I didn't know that alcohol withdrawal was dangerous. So I just dried out in my bed, which not the best plan.
Yeah.
It's what I did. But I could not stop using successfully without being put into a facility. And that's not the difference between alcohol and drugs. What I think it is more they tell you that addiction is a progressive disease. And I had progressed to the point where I needed to be put somewhere. Alcohol would have been the same thing. I needed to be put somewhere to be removed and taken away from everything.
It's funny that you said like using successfully. Like, what does that mean?
I don't even know.
I
wasn't able to do it.
I feel like we try and like make it up as we go. I feel like we either rationalize it as I'll still have money. Like maybe I can use and like still have money and like buy food and manage to pay rent, or maybe using successfully means not hurting people or not getting another DUI.
Maybe it means not feeling the way I'm feeling anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that never comes. Okay, what this guy says is the guy's name's Rick, and he goes, "This is just the cost of doing business, man." And that's the way I viewed it. Like, I got arrested. I had a really good opportunity, and I couldn't take it because I couldn't leave the state. So this guy went on tour, and, they did whatever they did after. And, I was stuck in Maryland. And I viewed it as the cost of doing business because I'm like, I'm playing guitar in a blues rock band. Like, my job is to get up there and do what everyone wants to and get drunk and get high, put on a good show. And as part of that, I will probably be arrested a couple more times. And, another opportunity will come. But the reality of the situation was, I'd allowed drugs and alcohol to take away a dream that I had, that I had been doing, working towards a lot. Like, this period of my life, I didn't have TV, not because I couldn't afford it, because I didn't need television. Like, our living room, all my roommates played music. We had we didn't have furniture. We had 2 drum sets and a whole bunch of amps and microphones and like blacklight posters and stuff. And that for like about 3 years. I mean, I went to bed watching the Jimi Hendrix Woodstock DVD on my PlayStation 2 to soak up whatever he was doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I lived my life for like 3 years. And, that might sound strange, but that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I was trying to pursue a music career. And I had an opportunity, and when it really came down to it, that opportunity got taken not by anything else but my drinking and drug use.
Well, so you said you had been in rehab multiple times, but what was like different about this?
Well, I had gone to IOPs. Like, that was
not treatment centers?
Well, I'm in Pathways. I'm in a treatment center. But what I would do is I would negotiate my way to the least amount of treatment to minimize having to go to jail, what I thought, so I could continue to, go to work and play music. So I went to Pathways IOP a couple times. And the last go round, I was facing charges, and I knew at this point this was going to be my 4th time. And so I knew what to do. I signed up for an IOP and was going to do all that. But that wasn't... so the car wreck, I was still using. The car wreck and arrest wasn't what convinced me to stop. It was when I couldn't prove that I lived in Pasadena because I never had my driver's license changed, and I was pre-trial ordered to my parents' house in Queen Anne's County and on Kent Island. It became apparent what I was doing, and my mom had to tell me, "You're not welcome in the house anymore, and your cat's staying here too." And I didn't have a good argument. I wasn't capable of taking care of him, and I told my pretrial officer, because I was late for reporting, I told her that I was struggling to get off the prescriptions I had, which wasn't the truth, but it was going to allow me to walk out of the building without getting arrested. And I didn't really know what to do. I knew that this was bad. And so I got high over it. And I was being taken to my IOP class that night, and I was a wreck. And my dad was driving the car, and he goes, "Man, I've seen you pull yourself out of like really rough situations your entire life." And he goes, "But you look terrible. I don't know what you're going to do about this, man." And I remember this very distinctly too, because what he was saying, like, I was listening, and then it just kind of faded away, and I was just playing everything back. And it was at a red light on Mountain Road in Pasadena, Maryland, and it was in my voice in my head, and I was playing out everything, and I was like, I'm doing all the things that I used to do to navigate the court system, and it's not working this time. I'm gonna I have a whole bunch of failed piss tests just waiting to get reported back, and for the first time, I did not see a way out, and that voice was just like, "Man, you really need help this time. I don't know what you're going to do. You're probably going to die." And I walked in the group, fell out in the middle of the room, woke back up, and told the counselor that I was going to go to a 28-day program. She said, we have a whole bunch of places that we can send you to. And I was like, I already know who I'm going to call, because I had that group of guys that I had been going to meetings with, and I got driven up. The one guy at the time did a meditation group at Right Turn, which I had been to their weekend program. And he was like, just, make it to Wednesday and I can bring you up there. So I don't remember the 2 days leading up to it.
Yeah.
Except for I do remember a little bit of that morning. I did the rest of the dope I had, and I smoked enough crack, so I thought I would stay awake for the car ride. And I vaguely remember being checked in. I remember getting released to like the crowd and walking into the meditation room and laying down, and I'm like out of this world.
It's a trip. Like,
yeah, and I'm listening to the calm music, and I'm like, maybe this won't be so bad. And then 12 hours later, when I was like sick and like, what have I done? And no one would come get me. I didn't even know where I was because the location for Right Turn had changed.
Yeah.
And it was in Eldersburg. It is in Eldersburg. I'd never heard of Eldersburg, and I was stuck there. And it was interesting. There's a lot of like things that go on in rehab, but when I was there, I was kind of just a ghost. I didn't get involved in any drama because there's a lot of people
the
say
rehab drama.
Yeah, and people say a lot of these things, and I've been like granted the perspective of a lot of people's thoughts on it, and I didn't do anything to get myself a correct attitude in rehab.
Really?
Or yeah, it wasn't.
I really feel like a lot of the work isn't done in treatment. I really feel like its purpose is separation, maybe getting rid of the physical cravings. Like they're trying to teach you things, but like a lot of it you're just not registering.
Yeah,
it's like not making sense because it's a foreign language.
So like don't get me wrong, treatment does have its purpose, and there's a couple moments that I can very distinctly remember from being there that changed my life. But like every little bit to that point, like I had an attitude about different things, and I acted certain ways, and for whatever reason now, like there's a meeting I go to now, and like, so I have a higher power belief. I don't really share it. It's not, tied with a religion and whatever. I have it. And when people ask me, I'll tell them about it. I don't really talk about it in meetings because, saying I have one is sufficient, and I'm more interested in why we're the same as opposed to what's yours that can make us different.
Yeah.
We're all here for a common solution. So they do say, like, you get here by the grace of God or whatever you want to call it. And, maybe that's what it was for me. But because I was not, the person that showed up to rehab was not who I was at the time. I didn't cause any problems, and I listened. And I also didn't have any options.
Yeah.
When I was in treatment, my roommate took all of our rent and electric money and went to Baltimore with it. So I got evicted while I was in treatment. So I was like, well, I guess I have to go to a sober house, because I can't go anywhere else. That probably saved my life.
How much sober time do you have today?
I celebrated 5 years October 5th.
When did you start with the H.O.F.F.A Foundation? And tell me a little bit about the H.O.F.F.A Foundation.
The H.O.F.F.A Foundation started in 2020. The Zumbrun family, who owns the funeral home in Sykesville, ended up, their son's name was also Jimmy, and he overdosed in August of 2019 and passed away. They ended up, his services were in the house that he grew up in. There was a moment where, one of Jimmy's brothers and the sister, and I guess the rest of the family were, getting ready to cremate their brother and son. And, I think Tom put a coffee cup in the casket with him before he was, they did what they did. And following all that, the idea was, how do we keep the spirit of my brother and our son alive? Mm-hmm. So they created this foundation that was initially, I believe the idea, I hadn't met them at this time. I was living in a sober house, ironically enough, or funny enough, down the street from
Wow.
the funeral home, and walking past it every day, not even knowing what it was. They wanted to sell coffee to scholarship people into treatment and into sober living. And, they were it was being roasted out in Seattle, I think. And there was like pictures of H.O.F.F.A beans coffee. So Jimmy's nickname, they had mobster nicknames. So his was Jimmy Hoffa Zumbrun. People have me saved in their phone now as Jimmy Hoffa. Not necessarily a big of a fan of that, but it is what it is. I've accepted it and learned to just embrace it. That evolved over time to, they had the ability to purchase a home and they wanted to turn it into a male sober home. So at the time, I had ended up working at the facility that I went to. It was pretty convenient. I was getting a degree, so I was working night shifts and studying while I was at work. And then taking care of the clients that needed help at nighttime, like helping people through detox and stuff like that. And there was a guy named George that he was the first person to remember my name up here. So I was like, I'm going to do whatever George says. I made that. It was like I was a week out of rehab. George went up because he had an H&I, a meeting commitment at the rehab, and asked a friend of mine if he would be interested in managing a house. He told him no, but talked to Jimmy. And since George brought it to my attention, I was like, well, I said I would do whatever George said, so I guess I'm going to hear these people out. And someone who I knew from meetings, that's a friend of mine now, Melissa, introduced me to Connie, who's the first person from the family I met. And she showed me the house and the plan that they had. She was like, I would just like to create a space for men to go to where if my son had the opportunity, this would be a place that I would want him to be. And I was trying to move out of sober living at the time and get my cat back from my mom's house or my mom and dad's house. And I said I could probably be useful and helpful, and because the plan needed to change. There was a whole bunch of things that they needed yesterday before they could open this house, and I said, look, I'll give you a year of my time, and we'll do this, and this like right away. And during that, the process got put on hold for like 3 or 4 months. And during that time, after I said I'd do it, I had a chance to move in with a friend of mine, and I was going to get back everything that I'd wanted. It was my last goals that I had set for myself in rehab. And I had a gut feeling that like I could and maybe was supposed to stick around and help these people. So it gave me the ability to help create something. So I ended up being the first resident of the H.O.F.F.A Foundation's house, the H.O.F.F.A house. And so I was the house leader for them. And I had an assistant, and I helped them fill the house. A year into that, the opportunity arose where we're looking at grants, and our board of directors is great. Everyone operates. They're a lot of them are very active. It's all on volunteer capacity, that they give their time freely. It's people who are either in recovery, their kids are in recovery, they've lost someone to addiction. So it's everyone has a different lens on how they look at it, and they all want to be helpful. I said, if we had somebody that could be dedicated to this kind of stuff, like we could probably provide a lot of services. And a year in, they offered me an opportunity to be their first employee. So it's a program coordinator. And depending on who I'm talking to and what I need to be, program director. Sometimes I say executive director because it sounds good. My business card doesn't say that. But so I started doing that. And for me, it was cool and nerve-wracking at the same time, because all of a sudden it's a whole bunch of different worlds that I had no clue about. And the initial goal was just to keep Jimmy's spirit alive. So, and we had the house. We have a helpline where we connect people with treatment. We've been able to do a grant-funded transportation service through Maryland's MOOR that's provided over last fiscal year for the state. It was 2,068 total rides to treatment
Wow.
for people that otherwise wouldn't have had one. So, for the connection piece, we connect people with treatment facilities. We connect them with the ride. And we have, a house that holds 7 guys that, help each other out, help hold each other accountable, help each other reach their goals. We try and meet them. I try and sit down with all of them at least once a week and say, what's your recovery goals? What are your life goals? So we can kind of be moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Not just in recovery, but in what do you want to do for yourself? Like, what do you want out of the life that you're about to be given?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not really what we think about when we're using. We have these, aspirations maybe, and like, it'd be nice to do this, but you're about to have the opportunities to if you do these things. And what would you like to be? So it's a pretty cool thing that we get to do. So that's what I do for them. I do the day-to-day. Talk to the government offices that we work with, go to the meetings in the community. I get a lot of freedom to identify maybe gaps for people trying to get to treatment or, barriers that they might face. And, I have the luxury of going up to, a board of directors and being like, so here's a thing that's a problem. And here's a way that we can maybe try and intervene.
Yeah. What have you learned from this? You feel like your whole experience with the H.O.F.F.A Foundation? Like if it's in like terms of your recovery.
I mean, there's professional skills, skills associated with working in recovery and talking to people. But the thing is, I have a very, this might sound weird at the beginning, but I have a very flexible schedule, which is good and bad because it bleeds my professional and personal life together a lot.
Yeah.
We answer the phone as much as possible. It's myself, and then we have a transport employee named Charles who does a great job. If Charles ever listens to this podcast, he's on things a lot, so he'll probably check it out. Good job, Charles. But can I do that?
Yeah.
All right. But what I've learned with everything put together, because that's how my life has gone, is I've learned where my heart lies. It's like a paradox of thinking that they talk about in the book by being, I don't remember how it's specifically worded, and we talked about it last night at this meeting, but by being, giving and generous, and by focusing on the spiritual part and helping other people, I get things in return. By giving away is how I'm supposed to receive, and when I can keep that on the forefront, that happens. So working with these guys and answering phone calls where people are pretty much at their lowest, and advocating for them and the people that need our service in moments where we've had to really kind of have tough conversations. It's allowed me to live a life where it's not, love and hate's not the way to put it, but sometimes it's frustrating, I guess is a better way, but like helping people makes me feel good. What I've found is it's given me an opportunity to also put myself in better situations. Like I'll complain because I'm like, I want some consistency, like of the people in my life and where I live, because I've lived in 6 different places in 5 years, and I'm like, well, how many more times am I going to move?
No, seriously, I feel that one.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's because I want to do something else, and I need a different location to do it. I got granted the ability to adopt a senior cat that had been, because I live in an apartment. I want to get a dog, but I can't do that yet because we're on the 4th floor. That had been there for 3 years. It had been in the shelter for longer than all the other ones, and I got to give that cat a home. And
Aww.
you get to see appreciation in that. So like, whether it's helping people, helping animals, I get to play music with a couple friends every now and then. Right now, I'm trying to make that more
consistent in your life.
Yeah. Well, I need to make it consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not you know it's I'm trying to struggling in how to figure out how to put it, because it's not like, you know, you get to meet yourself or you get to find out who you are. That doesn't really describe it for me. What does describe it, I think, is I've learned where my heart lies on things, how I want to be.
Yeah.
Like I want to be genuine. I want to take care of myself mentally and physically, and I want to be able to look back at things and be like, no matter what the outcome was, I would not have changed how I acted and things I said, and how I was to everyone else involved. And I didn't know that that's what I wanted the most. Like,
Yeah.
to just figure out what I wanted to what I loved doing and what I wanted to do. And
You're learning about yourself.
yeah, and a combination of what I do for a job and what I do for my life, you know, it's allowed me to kind of, you know, pretty much again learn where my heart lies on things.
It's beautiful.
Thanks.
I really want to thank you for coming on the podcast today. I've appreciated hearing from your experiences and what you do with H.O.F.F.A.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.